Welcome back to the Soulful of It podcast, where the cosmos meet the cards and the mundane becomes magical. I'm your guide, 𝗧𝗃𝗀𝗀𝘀, and in this episode, we'll dive back into the astrological transits and tarot for the second half of August 2025. If you're thirsty for a soulful conversation, then you came to the right podcast. So let's fill up your cup until you're soul full of it. Hello, soul friends and family. We are halfway through August, and the energy is starting to really pick up now that we've got Mercury stationed direct. And what a relief that truly is. I don't know how you all navigated that energy, but this time around, I definitely had some technical difficulties. And as the summer starts winding down in the northern hemisphere, we are readying ourselves for a seasonal shift, with the fall equinox just weeks away, in tandem with the next and final eclipse portal of 2025, which is awaiting us in September. I always like to say that life is a musical, and with that, on the world stage, we are seeing surprise information about the life of a showgirl, as well as a war of information and misinformation that continues to unfold. For instance, the Prime Minister of Israel, Netanyahu, continues to claim that, quote, no one is starving in Gaza. But the photos and the videos pouring out all over social media showing the truth of starvation and the reports of targeted journalists among the thousands of innocent lives, many of them children, lost to the devastation of war, completely contradict that. In the United States, the House of Representatives adjourned early for their summer break, a move that comes on the heels of the bipartisan push for the Epstein files to be released, while the former president's son, Hunter Biden, speaks his truth and his rumors about the origins of Trump and Melania's relationships and the ties to a Mr. Jeffrey Epstein that may have started it all, which has led to a $1 billion lawsuit recently filed. On the topic of lawsuits, there are headlines traveling from France to the United States that have spilled out across the globe as the French president and his wife, Brigitte Macron, are pursuing a defamation lawsuit against American podcaster Candace Owens. I bring up all of these headlines and recent events because there is a major intersection happening between the old media machines and the new media moguls that is reshaping and reimagining how we the people consume content. This has, of course, been an ongoing conversation, and with Uranus and Gemini until November 7th, we're really getting a strong first taste of what the 7-year transit will bring to the surface in our communications across continents and cosmos. And oh my goodness, the cosmos! Something I feel nearly no one is speaking about, or at least not enough, is this interstellar object, which NASA discovered at the beginning of July. It's named 3I Atlas, and it's traveling at an unimaginably high speed of 130,000 miles per hour, which if you don't do miles per hour because you use the metric system, which I wish I understood. I know everybody says it's easy, but I just, American, I just never learned it. That is 209,000 kilometers per hour, which is making it the fastest interstellar object ever recorded. And it's also only the third interstellar object to pass through our solar system that we know of. The first two were identified in 2017 and in 2019. And you know what stands out about those dates to me is that Uranus first entered Taurus in 2018, which happens to be the year between them. And maybe I'm just fixated because Uranus seems to be causing such significant and thought-provoking upheaval. But back to this interstellar object, which many have identified as a comet, and yet there are also astrologers saying that it can't possibly be a comet because it appears to be missing a key characteristic of a comet, which is a tail. Some are saying that it's an alien probe, which of course I love. But others are saying that if it isn't a comet, it might be an asteroid. And if you're wondering what is the difference between an asteroid and a comet, asteroids are composed of rock and metal, whereas comets are made of ice, dust, and rock, which makes me think of Game of Thrones, like a song of ice and fire. And as I'm speaking, 3I Atlas, the comet or asteroid or alien probe, whatever you might want to call it, is currently in Jupiter's orbit. And in late October, on the 29th to be exact, it will come the closest to the sun between the orbits of Earth and Mars. But don't worry, it is not going to be hitting Earth, or at least its current trajectory doesn't seem to show that. All of this is to say that there is so much unfolding in our world right now, and also in the worlds and perhaps universes that lie beyond us that we have never seen before. Astrologers have been saying that 2025 is an unprecedented year, and 8 months into it, I have to say we prove that statement true with each passing day. And with all that food for thought, let's fill up on what the cards have for us these next couple of weeks, starting with, for the wisdom or the rose at the center of the spread, we have the Two of Wands. An individual dressed in a red robe stands atop a castle parapet, holding a small globe in their right hand and a wand in their left, as another wand is fixed to the wall behind them, hence the Two of Wands. They gaze out over a landscape overlooking fields, mountains, and the sea. For some reason I want to say lions and tigers and bears, oh my. Suggesting a long distance has already been traveled, and yet the journey is far from over. The Two of Wands is about holding the vision, and as a two, it's also about balance and choice. This card, as our wisdom, as our rose, it indicates that this is a time to gaze beyond our current circumstances toward a bigger, broader, and perhaps even brighter horizon. As this card sits at the heart of the spread, it's an invitation to zoom out and take it all in before you zoom back in, which is, of course, very Virgoan. Because Virgo, ruled by Mercury, tends to want all the little details. And as we begin this episode, we do so stepping into Virgo season, as well as a Virgo new moon. But before we get lost in the specifics or the astrology, it's important that we allow ourselves the space and time needed to see the bigger picture to define our next direction. This card is a reminder that we've got our whole world in our hands. We are the creators of our own destinies, and it is up to us to decide where we will go from here. Then, for the attention or thorns crossing the rose at the center, we have the Hierophant. In the traditional Smith-Rider-Waite tarot card imagery, we see a spiritual figure, who also is wearing a red robe, sitting on a throne between two pillars, which isn't quite wands, but similar. They are wearing a triple crown. Wow. I mean, go off, king. And holding a staff in their left hand, topped with a cross, as their right hand has 2 fingers pointed up and 2 fingers pointed down, which is a symbol of granting blessings, or as above, so below. 2 acolytes kneel before them, receiving a blessing or a teaching. Keys lie crossed at their feet, representing access to sacred knowledge. In this position of the cross, which, quick moment of silence for the irony that it's in the cross position and it's like a religious type of figure, represents what supports or challenges us and may signal a need to discern which structures are guiding and which are quietly confining us or even confirming us of the stories we tell ourselves, like echo chambers that sing back to us the songs we've always sang instead of the new melodies waiting to be made. Astrologically speaking, we're entering a time where unconventional wisdom is rising. Just as we can and should change our minds, we can and should at times change our visions too. If we don't like what we are seeing, it doesn't mean we need to break the mirror. Sometimes we just need to clean it off or find a window to look out of instead. The Hierophant is often seen as the wisdom of another, and yes, it absolutely can be that. But I also believe that it can signal a deep need for tapping into our own inner wisdom, which will help ensure that our Two of Wands journey is soul-led, not soulless. Next, at the basis or root of our spread, we have the High Priestess. Now, the imagery of this card is the most similar to that of the Hierophant, and they are both major arcana cards, as well as the only major arcana cards pulled in this spread. Pictured in this card, we see a serene woman sitting between two pillars, one black, one white, symbolizing the balance of opposites like yin and yang. She wears a crown resembling the moon in its 3 phases and holds a scroll marked Torah. At her feet, a crescent moon rests upon a flowing blue robe that looks a lot like a waterfall, with pomegranates and palm leaves upon a veil behind her. The High Priestess is the card of intuition, and we cannot follow our intuition if we're not listening. At the root of this reading lies the power of quiet observation and introspection. It's about trusting the depth of our feelings and our inner knowing. The High Priestess reminds us that the truest foundation for action is self-trust. The veil behind her hints at the connection between our world and the realms beyond, both in the spirit world as well as other dimensions, where time and space operate differently. To know which way to go, we have to trust ourselves, and we have to get quiet enough to hear the spiritual insights that are heightened at this time, never forgetting that our inner compass is our most reliable map. And it's okay if our map doesn't look like those who surround us. We may not be headed to the same places, and even if we are, we may need to take wildly different paths to reach our mutual destination. And then for our guidance or sun, we have the 8 of Cups. Beneath the night sky with an eclipse moon above, a person in a red cloak, and there seems to be a theme here with these red cloaks. They're walking away from 8 neatly stacked cups sitting on shore as they journey along a body of water towards a mountain range in the distance. A gap in the cup suggests something is missing or incomplete, likely motivating their departure. The 8 of Cups as our guidance is a call to release what's emotionally unfulfilling, even if it once felt stable or safe. This is about following a feeling that does not pass by you, but instead sits in your gut day after day, night after night, urging you to leave what's not lifting you up to begin making room for what truly nourishes you, for what fills you up until you're soulful of it. This is the tide, pulling us away from what's simply out of alignment, reminding us that it's not necessarily about walking away. It's about walking toward that which is more in tune with our inner truth, which feels like a perfect tie-in to the other cards that we pulled with the imagery of the mountains and the journey and the water symbolism, the intuition, the inner knowing. All of those things are very intertwined. And now that we've talked about the tarot, let's explore the remaining notable transits of August, beginning with on Friday, August 22nd, the sun enters Virgo, kicking off the season of the healer, the analyst, and the perfectionist, which are just a few of the archetypes associated with the mutable earth sign. I've always thought that Virgo season being aligned with the beginning of the school year makes so much sense because it's a great time to seek knowledge. Virgo, like Gemini, is ruled by Mercury after all. And this year's Virgo season is going to be one to remember because it is hosting eclipse season. And it kicks off with the first of 2 Virgo new moons in this season. So let's talk about that. The new moon is taking place at 11:06 p.m. Pacific time on Friday the 22nd. And with the sun having just entered the sign of Virgo earlier that afternoon, it is occurring at 0 degrees, which is a critical degree. And that adds an extra emphasis to the new beginnings that this season will bring. Uranus is in a square aspect to the new moon, highlighting the tension of change and the friction of trying to discern fact from fiction. New moons are the darkest nights, and it's in darkness that we sometimes lose our faith in taking the next step forward. This year, 2025, is a 9 year, which is connected to the Hermit, who in the traditional Smith-Rider-Waite tarot card imagery shows an elder holding a lantern and walking through darkness. The Hermit is also a tarot card that's associated with Virgo, so I think leaning on the guidance of this card to continue moving forward even when we can't see what's way out in the distance can be especially helpful in this season and in the darkest of nights. It's about trusting yourself, which is very the High Priestess, which of course is one of our cards. And that's really a strong message that's coming through for us with this particular season of change. The new moon is also in a trine aspect with Chiron, a comet known as the wounded healer. Chiron is also retrograde, something that I forgot to mention in our last episode, and nearing the end of its journey through Aries, where it's been transiting since 2018. Now that shift out of Aries won't be happening until next year in 2026, and then it will solidify in 2027, so we're not going to go down that road quite yet, as we're still collectively navigating the wisdom of this transit, which is Chiron in Aries. And that's been all about healing the ego through humility, through openness, through learning how to advocate for oneself in the midst of upholding togetherness, instead of prioritizing the self over all others due to our instincts of survival or self-preservation. It's a transit of healing through interdependence, not independence or codependence, which, like many things, is a lot easier said than done, and it also takes practice. The trine between Chiron and the new moon isn't as tight of an aspect as the square between Uranus and the new moon, but it's still a part of the story of the insights that this new moon is offering us, which is that it can be profoundly healing to change our minds. New beginnings can take root when we are willing to see both sides of the story. The truth is ever present, and we may find ourselves believing in lies far longer than we realize before we open our eyes and see the truth that stands before us. There's a quote I absolutely love by author Susan Scott that reads, "All confrontation is a search for truth. Who owns the truth? Each of us owns a piece of it, and nobody owns all of it." So that's the wisdom I'll leave you to simmer on with this first new moon in Virgo. And yes, I keep saying first because we're going to get another one at the end of September. And that one's going to be a whole lot bigger because it's also going to be a solar eclipse. So you can think of this new moon as the groundwork for that. It's like the pathway that we're walking as we get closer to the doorway of destiny, which awaits us with these eclipses. And just keep in mind that everyone owns a piece of the truth. Then, following the new moon, on Monday, August 25th, Venus enters Leo, and it immediately forms a harmonious trine to Saturn and Neptune, who of course are in Aries, which is making the arrival into the fixed fire sign feel sweet as well as a little bit spicy. Venus in Leo is an act of love through celebration. It's the pride flag displayed on your porch. Love is love, being a mirror that feels very Venus in Leo. It's the drinks on me declared at the sports bar after your team wins the game. It's the love me out loud energy of celebration and reclamation that does not shy away from the fear of judgment or scorn. There's a warmth and generosity behind this transit that can have us admiring and seeking to be admired, which also means that it blurs the lines between love and validation. So it's good to calm any impulses you may have to prove your love through big shows of affection and ask yourself what the why is behind that. The generosity piece can also have us charging things that we may not have budgeted for to our credit cards, splashing out because it feels good in the moment and not taking into consideration that the moment is fleeting, much like the feeling of excitement that we get from the rush of dopamine of sliding that card. So my best advice for navigating this transit over the next few weeks is to be observant of how you're expressing your love for yourself as well as for others, and how you or others may be desiring to be loved, and also to be inquisitive about the motivations behind your loving actions. Are you being generous without an agenda, or are you overgiving because you're hoping that it will win the other person over? I'm not saying that's a bad thing. All is fair in love and war after all. But it's worth pondering. If you're giving only to get, then the energy of whatever you give, be it your time and energy, acts of service, physical gifts, it's going to have an energy of, okay, now you owe me, attached to it. And if that's not the message that you want to be sending, then it's worthwhile to consider and question what emotions or desires may be fueling you, and ask yourself if that's truly in alignment for you. I think as a people pleaser myself, or a recovering people pleaser, I prefer to say, It's something that doesn't always occur to me. Like I'm giving. Like, could I have a motive? Could I have an agenda that's just like so deep below the surface, like so subconscious that I'm hearing myself say this and being like, well, that's not me. But like maybe it is sometimes. And maybe it isn't other times. But it is good food for thought, especially with Venus in Leo. And to end on a more positive note, because it's good to call ourselves out to call ourselves back in, right? If you know anybody who has a natal placement of Venus in Leo, they are just the most warm, loving, big-hearted people. They are just pure joy and just wonderful to be around. So if you know anybody who has that placement during this transit, this is such a great time to spend time with them. What a great time to get some warmth off of the radiance of their energy and celebrate them and be celebrated by them. And of course, that energy is even stronger because this would be their Venus return. If they have the natal placement of Venus in Leo, then this is when Venus is returning to Leo for them, which just makes that warmth a little bit stronger. Then on the very next day, Tuesday, August 26th, we have another sweet aspect with Venus still in the trine to Saturn and Neptune, as well as a sextile to Uranus. There is so much opportunity in this Tuesday, and you can call that in or let it pass you by, but I'm mentioning it now with the hopes that this heads up will stay with you and you will not sleep on the good energy radiating from this day, and really from both of these days. This Monday-Tuesday combo, the 25th, 26th of August, these are good days. These days feel really phenomenal. Make some plans or soak in your own sunshine and enjoy the fucking day. And one way to activate these aspects is to do something differently and to be open to the outcome shifting with it. Because of course, Uranus is in the mix with this. So for example, what if you took the scenic route home from work on this day? What if you grab coffee or lunch somewhere that you've never been to before and you keep your headphones off and your eyes and your ears open to possibility? What if you wore that outfit that you bought but you never actually have worn out yet? What can you do differently on this day? You may just find that you shift your timeline altogether. And with the eclipses so close and arguably active already by that first new moon, anything is possible. Then, the last thing that I want to chat about in the cosmos this month is an astrological event that is really significant for our lifetime. Because on Friday, August 29th, Pluto will go out of bounds. And what out of bounds means is that Pluto's declination, which is its north-south position relative to the Earth's equator, exceeds the normal range considered for planets within the ecliptic plane. Now, a simpler way to say this is that Pluto is beyond the sun's apparent path, aka the ecliptic, in the sky, and it's therefore considered outside the domain of the sun. Now, I am a tropical Western astrologer, which defines the zodiac signs based on the Earth's seasonal cycles, where the sun is, of course, the life force energy. Think of it like the sun sets earlier in the winter and later in the summer, right? It's that Western perspective that's very sun-centric. And from my perspective, as a tropical Western astrologer, I'm viewing this Pluto out of bounds period as a time when Pluto is essentially beyond the reins of the sun. It's able to be unbound, unleashed, kind of like a lawless energy, which is a bit frightening when you consider that this isn't Venus we're talking about, the planet of love and relationships. We're talking about Pluto, who is associated with cycles of death and rebirth, and mythologically it's connected to Hades, the ruler of the underworld, and arguably the best character in Disney's Hercules. Zero to hero? Anybody? Anyways, the last time that Pluto was out of bounds was for 15 years, and it was between 1938 to 1953. Can you think of any major events that aligns with that timing? Like me, I'm sure many of you are immediately thinking of World War II. And I'm not bringing that up to create fear, although ironically, Pluto is very connected to fear because we mere mortals tend to fear death. and we fear change, and those things are very Plutonian. So why is this significant, and what does it mean? Well, it's significant because Pluto is the planetary body that goes out of bounds the least frequently. And this is particularly significant because not only will Pluto be out of bounds for 10 years, between 2025 and 2035, but it's also the last time that Pluto will be out of bounds for 3,000 years. So this is a paradigm-shifting astrological event that will unfold on the world stage for the next decade. On top of that, it's occurring while Pluto is in the sign of Aquarius, a sign that literally represents humanity and is known for innovation and rebellion. When you simplify it to think of Pluto as power, this is ushering in a revolutionary rebirth for the people here on Earth through the reclamation of power. From my perspective, here in the United States, I can see how the stage has been set for this shift in the last several months. We have elected officials who are bought and sold by foreign countries that dabble in our elections, as well as billionaires and corporations that literally only exist by feeding off the life and light source energy of the people. I'm not trying to make this political, but the truth is that everything has become political because politics is a game of power and control. Just the fact that neither political party, not Biden's administration of establishment Democrats, nor Trump's administration of pretending not to be establishment Republicans, has been forthcoming with releasing the Epstein files. And I bring that up as an example because it's such a great illustration of how history is written not necessarily by the winners, but by those who hold and maintain systems of power. Systems that are built to keep them in power. And at what cost? Well, sadly, the cost of our very lives. Us everyday folk, us tax-paying, vote-casting citizens. There's this quote by John F. Kennedy that goes, "Those who make peaceful revolution impossible will make violent revolution inevitable." And I'm not saying that we should go grab our pitchforks and our lighters, but what I am saying is that we should be readying ourselves for the upheaval, for the fight, and for the rise and fall of both those who we perceive as good and those who we perceive as evil. This is a time of collective shadows surfacing. This is a portal of possibility fueled by the power of the people. That's the Aquarius piece. And when do the people rise up and rebel? When chaos erupts. When war wipes out thousands of lives, like in Gaza, like in Ukraine. When our representatives, quote unquote, pass legislation that they call big and beautiful, yet have ugly and unbelievably harmful impacts on our friends, our families, and our futures. When enough is enough. And while I don't believe, sadly, that we've arrived at that collective conclusion just yet, I do believe that it is imminent. I see it in the stars, and I see it in the eyes of the modern slaves those many call leaders have made out of the working class. As was said in V for Vendetta, people should not be afraid of their governments. Governments should be afraid of their people. On a personal note, I think there are two things that are destroying our world that we, the people, this is very Aquarius, it's such an Aquarius opinion to throw out here, but I have to because it's, the age of Aquarius. Pluto's in Aquarius. That is what this is about. There are two things that I believe are ruining our world, and we have every opportunity and every responsibility to change that. And those two things are greed, which I know is very obvious, and the other one I think is very insidious. It's not as obvious to all of us. There are many of us who are awake enough to see it, and then there's a lot of us who are asleep at the wheel who don't see it or don't want to see it. And that's apathy. Not giving a fuck. You got to give some fucks. You just got to. And I know that's coming from me. My name is Carrie. I care, right? I give a lot of fucks. That's why they call me Carrie. They couldn't name me Gives Fucks. That'd be a weird name, right? Maybe I'll change it for comedic value. But what I'm getting at here is if you don't care, then the greed's just going to continue. It's going to perpetuate itself. And greed robs us of our life. For people to be sitting on these giant piles of money that they could never in a million lifetimes spend through at the cost of the lives of everybody who's making that money possible for them. It's sick. And I know with a lot of people listening, I'm preaching to the choir, but maybe there's one person listening who just isn't tapping into this truth. And maybe it doesn't feel good to hear it. I get it. I also don't want to watch the fucking news most days. Really, it's a lot. It's overwhelming. It's so much for our nervous systems. We're not meant to have a 24/7 news cycle. We are not meant to know the traumas of every territory. We aren't. I do believe that. And at the same time, knowledge is power. At the same time, you are here. So be here, prepared to be nowhere else and do that which you can, even if it seems very, very small. Choose to be awake. This is the human experience. You're not here by mistake. You're here for magic. And magic comes at the cost of great courage. And courage is the currency of change. So let's be courageous. And it's with these very Plutonian, Uranian thoughts that I want to close this episode. So as we're riding these waves of change into the month of September, which is very much a portal, let's reflect on how the Two of Wands is inviting us to choose the path that expands our soul. How the Hierophant is challenging us to be our own wisest sage. How the High Priestess is reminding us that our intuition is the map. And how the Eight of Cups encourages us to step into the unknown, trusting that our steps are taking us closer to a future of our own making. I'll catch up with you all in September when we will step into the portal of those eclipses one way and emerge on the other side transformed. Until then, stay curious, stay grounded, and stay soul full of it.